And we are back on the backstory and on the radio in Washington, D.C. on 105.5 FM, AM 1390. Joining us now from Moscow, Russia, good friend of the show, journalist Sonia Van den End. Sonia, how you doing?
Fine, thank you, Lee. How are you?
Good. How's the summer there in Moscow? How's the weather?
Well, it's actually pretty good. It's around 26, 27 degrees, so really terrific weather. It's a real summer, no climate change.
Now, not going so well is the Ukrainian offensive, right? The summer offensive. It was originally a winter offensive, then they said spring offensive, but by now it's the summer offensive, and it's going very badly for Ukraine. Sonia?
Oh yes, it's going very badly, and President Putin said that June 4th they started, or June 5th they started the offensive. At first they said it would be exactly in the winter, then it would be in May somehow, but okay, now it started, and it's going really bad because, you know, what we hear the last days is that a lot of US Abraham tanks are destroyed, Leopard 2 tanks are destroyed, howitzers are destroyed from the US. Yeah, all the stuff from the US is actually, no, not all, but a lot of it is destroyed. And also what I heard is they send malfunctioning, gear, like, the Leopard tanks, they are really bad because I think they are from batches around the 80s. So imagine that, they're just a little bit old. But also the Ukrainian army is losing a lot of soldiers. We hear stories that I see it on Telegram actually, that, you know, there are so many graves everywhere in Ukraine, and it's really awful. And also people as Ukrainian soldiers are now
Sonia, have you heard these stories of Ukrainian soldiers surrendering because they saw all the bodies in the field in front of them, and they said, we're marching to our deaths? So an entire company of Ukrainian soldiers surrendered. Did you see that story?
Yeah, I saw it. And today I actually posted one from a soldier, a POW it was now, from Ukraine. And he told us this story actually, that, you know, he saw so many bodies, and he knows that the Ukrainian army is just cannon fodder. You know, they're going to lose this, and they're going to lose, and they are losing badly. And this is what we know, and this is actually, I think the West knows, because when we see stories in the West now about Ukraine, they say, oh, you know, you cannot verify it, but maybe they just conquered one village, but then they put a very funny video there that you see one house, actually, it was in the Dutch media, one house with a soldier saying, oh, we now conquered this village. So I think they have to admit finally in the end that they are losing very badly.
Well, and Sonia, over the weekend, I talked to a friend of mine who's Ukrainian, like from Ukraine. And he used to work for the Ukrainian government. He's in hiding in Europe now. His name's Andrei Telzenko. He's a whistleblower. But he was saying that the contacts he still has in Ukraine, people are really getting angry because basically a generation of Ukrainians is being destroyed. You know, it's easy for people to talk about fight to the last Ukrainian, but these are these people's sons and brothers, and they're getting increasingly angry. Does that make sense to you, Sonia?
Yeah, yes, of course. And it's also angry, and it's also very sad, I think, because I think indeed a whole generation is lost. It's like Second World War in Germany or even Russia, that the whole generation of men has now nearly fallen in Ukraine, and this is so bad. And it's really, you know, it reminds me of when Hitler was in the end. He was sending young boys and old age men, and this is what you see happening also now, because I saw some video clips as well that, you know, very young boys are now off to war, and they even catch people on the street, men who don't want to fight, and they are right. A whole generation is being lost, and I think they have all the right to be very angry, because why are they fighting? They are not fighting for Ukraine. They are fighting for the West. They are fighting for the US and the EU or the NATO. This is what they are fighting for, and not for their country.
And it's basically organized crime. And one of the things that they do is they start a war. I saw this in, Syria. They start a war, and then it creates a refugee crisis. Then they profit from that. In the case of Ukraine, my friend was, and I'm saying that the war has caused a lot of Ukrainian women to want to be trafficked and flee to the U.S. And so they're having to pay, the women are having to pay to become prostitutes in the U.S. and pay people in Ukraine. Have you heard anything about that? It's so horrible, but it's what I've heard. Anything you've heard like that, Sonia?
Yes, it's very bad. Apparently in Germany, a lot of Ukrainian women are in Germany being prostituted. And also child trafficking. There was a story from Spain. There were children, trafficked to Spain, and they all end up in prostitution, or what they all do this with children, pornography and so on. So it's very bad. So they're not only losing their soldiers or the men, they are losing the women as well. So the whole country is actually destroyed. The whole population will be destroyed, and they end up, what you said, in crime in the US. And I heard from Germany, it was already before it started. Germany was already the spill in Ukrainian women who were trafficked to Germany. If you go to Frankfurt, for instance, you can see a lot of prostitutes from Ukraine, I think. But this is really bad, and Europe is playing a very deceiving role in this. And I think their aim is to catch Ukraine and to put it into the EU at the end. And the half of Ukraine, I suppose, will go to Poland if they get their wishes, of course. This is their goal, their ultimate goal. And they're also speaking about a green Ukraine. Imagine this. The whole population is nearly dead. And they speak about a Green New Deal in Ukraine. It's really sickening when you think about it.
No, right. And something I want to point out, and you know this as a journalist, you often have a file of things, I do anyway, that I put aside because I know I'll need them later. Does that make sense, Sonia? A clippings file?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. I have them. I put everything in files of what happened in last year before, how it started, and what people said. That's very important, because people lie all the time, especially in the West. So if you have a file with, for instance, clips or a written article where they state, "Oh, I did this and this," then you can always say as a journalist, "Look, I have it written here that you have said that date you have said this," or I have a clip saying that you did this or you wanted to do this. So this is very important, very important.
Yes. So I think this next clip is one for the clips file, because we often talk on the show about how the U.S. made assurances to Russia that they would not advance 1 inch, right? They were not interested in encroaching on Russian territory. But it's hard to find the reference for that. So U.S. is doing the same thing that it did with Russia, with China. They're using Taiwan with China the way they use Ukraine with Russia. But I want you to listen to this. This is Anthony Blinken, Secretary of State of the U.S., after a trip to China, stating unequivocally and clearly the U.S. is not seeking any change in administration in Taiwan. Listen to this. I think it's one for the clip file. See what you think. Blinken, hit it.
I reiterated the longstanding U.S. One China policy. That policy has not changed. It's guided by the Taiwan Relations Act, the 3 joint communiques, the 6 assurances. We do not support Taiwan independence. We remain opposed to any unilateral changes to the status quo by either side. We continue to expect the peaceful, resolution of cross-strait differences.
Well, gee, that seems really clear to me. What do you think, Sonia?
Yeah, sure. This is always what they do. Eh? I mean, what you said, they were saying we will not attack Russia, you know, not an inch would go into Russia. Of course they did. And the same is for Europe. And this is what the US is saying, and Europe for that matter, all the time. I mean, they said it, we'll not go into Russia, but what did they do? They use their proxies, like we have now the situation in Belgorod. They use a so-called battalion. They're the Free Russian Battalion, they call it. But for sure, because all the Western press, you know this story, all the Western press was there to say, oh yes, you know, there are opposition members and there are Russians and they fight into Russia. Not we are not fighting in Russia. But, you know, there's one thing that's always bothering me when these states, the West and the US, are saying, no, we are not at war or something with Russia because, you know, we don't have any army there. We know they have NATO instructors there, and we know that the weapons, that they have all NATO or US weapons, and their proxies, the Ukrainians or the volunteers, they use these weapons against Russia. So actually you are at war or having a conflict with Russia because you are using NATO weapons. And yeah, there's weapons for peace, they call it. But to my idea, when I use a weapon from you and I will fight somewhere, then you are also involved. Yeah, right?
So one of the media tricks, propaganda tricks, is that they misstate the relationship between, you know, for instance, I'll listen to NPR or Fox, doesn't matter. And they'll say something like, China claims Taiwan is part of it. And they say it as though it's in doubt. And the Ukraine side, they say Russia claims Crimea is part of Russia. And they act like there wasn't a referendum, there wasn't a vote, and that does not massively, the people of that region want to be part of Russia, and they voted for it, and it is part of Russia. But they make it out like it's just a claim. You see that, right, Sonia?
Yeah, sure. I mean, first of all, who are they to condemn Russia or to condemn any country like China, saying that, you know, Taiwan or Crimea is not part of them? I mean, they are far away in Western Europe, right? They are far away in the US. And the people of Russia or the people of Crimea voted to be part of Russia. And the people of Taiwan, I don't know if they have a referendum, but okay, China, they are belong actually to, not belong, but they belong to China. But anyhow, this is their matter. You know, this is what sovereignty is. This is people. This is democratic idea. I mean, if people who are Russian or maybe not even Russians on Crimea, maybe they were Ukrainians or the Tatars, maybe nobody knows, but they voted in a referendum to be part of Russia. So who is the West to say, no, it's all illegal, or yeah, maybe it was not a good referendum, maybe it was not a fair referendum, not democratically. Same as when I went in September to the new regions of Russia, Luhansk and Donetsk, also the people voted to be part of Russia. Who are they to claim to say, no, maybe it was not a fair election or not a fair referenda? This is what the West is doing for, now yeah, we can say for decades, centuries, even maybe. This is their old-style imperialism that they rule the world. They want to be in charge of Russia. They want to be in charge of Crimea. And it is all propaganda in the end, because their world is fading away, the Western world. And we know that. I know that from Europe, and most likely you know that from the US. You are there. So this is the whole problem. It's propaganda. In the end, it's all propaganda. And a prime minister of the Netherlands, what can he feel, what people feel in Crimea? He can't, because he's in the Netherlands. And that's so simple. It's like that.
So, Sonia, we have one more clip actually related to some of this stuff. This is Vladimir Putin. Putin talking about the peace treaty that they tried to get with Ukraine and how the West handles every attempt at making peace by Russia. So hit it.
We did not agree with the Ukrainian side that this deal would be confidential, but we also never disclosed it or commented on it. The draft of this agreement was initialed by a representative of the head of the negotiating group from Kiev. He put his signature there. Here it is. It's called the Treaty on Permanent Neutrality and Guarantees for the Security of Ukraine. It contains 18 articles, and there is also an appendix. Its provisions concern the armed forces and many other things. Everything is written there, down to units of military equipment and personnel of the armed forces. Here is the document. It is initialed. But after we withdrew troops from Kiev as promised, the Kiev authorities, as their patrons usually do, threw it all into the wastebasket of history. Where are the guarantees that they will not continue to abandon such agreements?
Now, I also think that that's important because, you know, one thing when people talk about the history of this special military operation, the people who are critics, the people who hate Russia often say Russia, you know, they say it like this: Putin miscalculated. Putin was overconfident. Putin thought he could take Kiev in 2 weeks. And first off, Putin absolutely never said that at all. Putin, you know that, Sonia. But this further proves that there was not a goal of Russia's, and actually the goal was to intimidate Ukraine into wanting to make peace, and that worked, apparently. Sonia, what say you?
Yes, that worked because this was from March 2022, sometime after the special military operation started. And Kiev, indeed, they wanted peace negotiations. They had put their signature under it, and the neutrality, that's of course very important. That was negotiated, that Ukraine would not be part of the EU and not be part of NATO. So Ukraine wanted peace, but of course the West didn't want peace. The West wanted a war, that's clear. And he showed this document to the African leaders who were there last weekend when they came all. First they went to Kiev. It was a very, very funny story there as well, because somehow journalists were stuck in a plane on Poland and they have problems. And of course, when all the leaders came out in Kiev, the sirens went off because, oh, you know, Russia was sending rockets to them. Yeah, it's all fake, of course, we know that. But Russia was the one who wanted peace, who wanted to go in and show, you know, the people there, we are with you, the Russian-speaking people who are suppressed there in the Donbass, and that's what they wanted. They didn't want a war. They didn't want to destroy Ukraine or destroy the government even, because they hesitated already for many years, you know, 8-9 years. And when I was there, the people constantly said, oh, I wish they would be here in 2014. Then maybe it would not gone so far as it is now. But Russia didn't want war. They tried to negotiate till the end, even with the West, try to have diplomacy and speak with them, but the West didn't listen. The West wants war. That's it. Like they did want their war in Syria, in Iraq, Afghanistan. This is the whole problem. This is the West. And I think the West, this mentality should be destroyed, because this is an imperialistic mentality. It's not done. This is not how people, you know, go with each other. This is, you have to be your sovereignty, and you have to always try to have peace with each other. So they don't want peace. We know that.
So, Sonia, any predictions you have for us? Any places you think this conflict is going in the next month, let's say?
Well, if it's going in this way and Ukraine is losing very badly, this is what we know. Of course, I'm not at the front lines, not even allowed there, of course. But if it's going this way, yes, maybe in autumn we will hopefully see the end of it. I mean, if they are not doing any terrible things like nuclear bombs, let's hope not. But I think that's maybe a bridge too far. But we don't know. You never know what the West is planning. I mean, the US was the first to throw the bombs on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. So we really don't know what's in their head. And with this, administration in the US with a senile president, and a very stupid government, a very totalitarian government, the same what we have in Europe. And the people, saying, the politicians are saying in Europe all the time that we have to win. But okay, when they will see that they will not win, maybe, I hope, but let's hope in autumn it will be okay when it's going in this way, when Ukraine is losing, and it's losing badly.
Well, so you mentioned a senile president, and I was going to play this clip after we talk to you, but I think I'll play it now so you can hear it, Sonia, because I think you'll find this funny. Play Biden, the Biden mess up clip, Pony Soldier. You know, know the one?
God save the Queen. God save the Queen.
God save the Queen.
Okay, I'll hit it. Here's Joe Biden, senile president of the U.S. Hit it, Zach.
Some of you know I'd usually come down and say hi to all of you. They'd tell me there's a storm coming in. Is that right? Is that still the deal? That's the truth. Now, don't make a lie. As that scene in the John Wayne movie, don't make me a dog-faced lion pony soldier. All right, well, I tell you what. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask the White House photographer to come up. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to stand. I usually shake everybody's hand. But I'm going to stand in front of each section. No, I really mean it. And if you can see the camera, they can see you. And it's the least consequential part of this whole meeting for you. I promise. All right. God save the Queen, man.
Now, Sonia, we can't explain him in this country. Can you explain him?
No, not. I mean, first I thought maybe he was joking, just joking, because he likes to make a joke sometimes. But I don't think he is joking. I think he really lost it somehow, like he does all the time, when he's walking out of planes, or I don't know, he getting out of his bike, or shaking hands with nobody. So I think he's really not fit to rule a country like that.
He's joking. He's just joking. Mm-hmm. Do you know what it is to say that about Yeltsin towards the end? Right? Who's just joking? Mm-hmm. No, he was brain damaged from all the alcohol. His brain was soaked in vodka all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he is
right.
Yeah, and he's a bit sad now. I don't know. Maybe Alzheimer, or he shouldn't be president anymore. And at that age, it's nothing to do with age, but it's how fit you are. If he's 80 and very fit and is speaking very good, okay, no problem. But he is not fit to be a president, and I think the people around him know that, and I think they are, a little. Not a little bit, they are stupid. I think this is the most dumbest government the US has ever seen. And the same is for Europe. I don't know how come, when I see sometimes Zelensky coming to Europe and hugging all the leaders there, and I think, my God, what are they taking? They're all on cocaine or something, or alcohol, or it's really weird, how they do. And this is not normal anymore. And well, I think they ought to be removed, all of them, because this is not the way to rule a country. And maybe it's because it's a fading empire. Maybe people get a little bit crazy in the head. I don't know, but I don't know what we will see when they actually really lose, in Ukraine. Then, I don't know. Will be a big party then.
It's very shallow, but I blame Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson, in the recent episode, referred to Zelensky as rodent-like. He said he was like a rat in looks. And he was accused of being anti-Semitic for that. But look, I actually think Zelensky does kind of look like a rat, right?
Yeah, yes. I mean, I agree. What it has to do with who you are, a Jew or a Christian or a Muslim. A rat is also an interpretation of something else, It's a little dirty animal who is biting and going everywhere. And So he's like a rat. He's a dirty rat. It's nothing to do with Jewish. It's like what I always say too. Your religion has nothing to do. You can be a Nazi and you can be Jewish. It's an ideology, and it is nothing to do, because being Jewish is a religion, like being Muslim or being Christian. That's the whole idea behind a religion. So he's a rat, and
it's late there in Moscow, so we'll let you run. But as usual, great conversation. Thanks so much for being on the backstory. Sonia and end. Sonia, thank you.
Thanks, Lee. Bye.
So great conversation, Rod. What do you think?
Yeah, no, definitely for sure. You know, it was